just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind, 'cause I know there is peace within your presence.
Welcome back to Body, Soul, Spirit. If this is your first time to join us, I wanted to say welcome. The intent of this channel is for people to come to know that there is a God who loves you and wants you to have a personal relationship with Him through His Son, Jesus. And if you enjoy the content, please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate that. And today I have the pleasure of having my mother with us again. We're going to be talking about her teenage years today. Mother, welcome back, and thank you again for taking the time to visit with us.
I'm just delighted.
Absolutely, well, it's a pleasure. Now, when we left off the last time, you were 12 years of age, and now we're starting into the teenage years. Let's begin by talking about your jobs on the farm as a teenager. And I wanted to make sure that we talk about how you learned to cook so well.
Okay. As I said, I grew up on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
My daddy was a farmer and a cattleman. He
Mm-hmm.
bought and sold cows, and on the days that he had cow sale,
Mm-hmm.
He left me a description on how to manage the cows and where to put them and how much feed to give them. And I had that duty added to my already
Chores. So you had to take care of the livestock when he was going to market.
That's right.
Well, you by yourself.
By myself.
And you were
13,
13 years
12,
old.
13 years old.
And several head of cattle, I'm sure.
Right.
Wow, that was, again, we talked a little bit about he didn't have a son, and
That's
it
right.
sounded like you were the son.
That's exactly right.
So you basically would get up and begin your day, and there always had to be cooking that took place.
Right.
Now, when would you say you began to learn, I guess from your mother, how to cook? At what age do you think you?
Well, I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a natural desire to learn to cook.
Yeah.
I just loved the thought of cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at a very young age pulling a chair up to the cabinet where my mother would be rolling out biscuits and getting everything ready for breakfast, or sometimes she would cook biscuits for supper.
Right.
And so I wanted to learn how, and I just mainly watched.
Yeah.
And just took it all in and
started learning at that early age. Now I want to pause right there. For many of you, in those days, people cooked from scratch. And from scratch means that they had all of the ingredients necessary to prepare it, to mix the ingredients together, to roll out the dough, to place that into an oven and cook it for. There were no canned biscuits back then, so you all would you learned to, first of all, I guess, by watching and just by rote over and over and over again. And so when did grandmother allow you to start cooking?
Well, I cooked along with her after I got on up 12 and 13, but I had observed, and that's about all I had done. And when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I could see that she was just really tired. We were working in the field together, and I really felt sorry for her. And I said, Mama, would you trust me and let me go to the house and fix lunch for everybody today? And she looked up and looked at me like, are you serious? And so I said, yeah, I'd like to try it and see if I could do it.
Right.
So we already had all the vegetables in the refrigerator ready to go, and basically...
And you did have a refrigerator back then, and that was a block of dry ice, is that right?
Well, no, this is a little bit later. We did get electricity, And we had a refrigerator
Okay.
and electric stove
Good.
and
And so,
electric
what would
freezer.
you cook for lunch when the first time you did that? What do you remember what you made?
Well, I can't specifically remember, but I know that I made several vegetables.
Yeah, and there was some deep frying going on or
Oh
something. I'm
yeah,
sure.
I would assume that it was probably chicken.
Chicken.
We had raised our own little fryers
Yeah.
and gotten them up big enough to eat.
Right.
And
So maybe some fried chicken, some vegetables, and maybe some
cornbread,
cornbread.
and maybe some apple turnovers.
Oh wow, you
Now,
knew how to make those at
We
that
grew
time?
our own apples, several trees, and I watched my grandmother.
Okay.
I learned from her on
How to
that
make
one.
those?
And so during the summer when we had plenty, we ate a lot of apple turnover.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, for those of you, again, an apple turnover in those days where you, again, made it from scratch. And these were fresh apples,
Right.
and I'm sure it may have had cinnamon or something
Well,
like that
some
in it.
people did put
Sugar,
cinnamon on
yeah.
theirs.
Right.
I would sprinkle a little on the outside after I got it done, and a little sugar on it. But
And these were fried.
right, we
Yeah.
fried them,
Yeah.
and so I looked up and everything was done, and it was just about at the right time.
Did
So
they come in, or did you take it out to
they
them, or how
came
did that
in.
work?
They all came in, and we had iced tea to go with that.
Wow, sweet
And,
iced
and
tea,
everybody ate, and they were like that. They looked like they were in shock that I had been able to prepare that meal.
Yeah, and they enjoyed
And
it.
I was 10 or 11 years old.
Wow. And so
And-
did you start regularly doing that, or
Oh
just on
yes,
occasion?
when they found out
That
I
you could
could.
She let you do it as much as you
Well,
wanted to, huh?
My mother took a job at the local
Factory.
factory.
Yeah.
And so that just she's kind of turned
Mhm.
that over to my younger sister and myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I did the cooking, and my younger sister did some of the other
And
chores.
Sue helped
Mhm.
out with that. Well, that's great. That's really good. Well, you've always been a wonderful cook, and we grew up with vegetables and the meat
Right,
and sweet tea
right.
and dessert and all of those things, and just how wonderful it is not to have to eat processed food
Oh,
when you're growing
yeah.
up as a
That's right.
child. And
Fresh food.
fresh food. Now, I wanted to get into basketball.
All right.
Tell us about basketball and how you started with that sport in the 8th grade, and how you feel God used the talent that He gave you to play basketball, and maybe how a lot of teenagers who play sports, that helps them to stay out of the riffraff and out of getting
That's
into
right.
trouble and things that they should. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, like I said the last time, I believe, I had kind of fallen in love with basketball when
Mhm.
we walked over to the adjoining school at the
Right.
Indian reservation, and we played a game with them.
Yes.
And so when I transferred to the new school, I went through the 6th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't get to go to gym.
Oh, no PE.
No
Okay.
PE.
Mhm.
And so then I got to 7th and 8th grade,
Okay.
and we went every day. And that just really gave me an opportunity to start practicing and learning to play basketball.
Right.
And finally, we got to go and play a neighboring school. And so, without me really realizing it, I was able to score 42 points in that one game.
That's amazing. Now tell everybody about female basketball back then. They were a little bit concerned about y'all getting,
Right.
exhausted and all
Yeah.
these other kind of things. So the court was set up how?
Right.
Half court, there would be how many people on each
3
side?
forwards and 3 guards.
Okay.
Their guards would guard us, and our guards would guard their girls.
So on each side of the court would be 3 on 3.
Right.
And you could not
Couldn't
cross
cross the line.
the line. Okay.
And so that's the only way we knew to play, because that was the state
Right. They regulated
regulations.
That. Mhm.
And so from that, I grew into and went to 9th grade, and
Yeah.
I was in the high school program then with
Right.
9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Yeah, it was high school. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So it was kind of back on the bench for me in the
Yeah,
9th grade.
right.
But as time went on, I was able to play more, and I started out, it was a little tougher, and
Yeah.
so I scored just a few points,
Right.
but by the time I got in the 12th grade,
Mm-hmm.
I averaged 42 points a
A
game.
game? Wow.
And my high score was 51 points in 2 different games.
That is amazing.
But
That is amazing.
girls hardly ever went on to play professional basketball
Well,
in
college
those days.
basketball, yeah,
And-
it was,
yeah.
I guess, limited. You
Yeah.
know, at that time.
Most girls had had enough by the time we graduated from
Yeah,
high school.
That's a lot of sports.
I was just ready to move on.
Exactly. Well, and those were, I know it was fun times, and you talk about it frequently because, you know, it was one of those things that you just were passionate about, and it and you did that in addition to all the chores at the
That's
house
right.
and everything that you had to do, plus your
Exactly.
schoolwork.
Yeah.
So, you know, your time was taken up
It
all day
was.
long. Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you this: what is your earliest memory of hearing about Dad, and some of those times when you came in contact with him, but he did not know who you were?
That's right. Well, when I got in the 9th grade, most of the girls that were playing on the team were members of his church in the
Mhm.
youth department.
Right, which was what church?
That was Mount Zion
Mount
Baptist
Zion,
Church,
that he taught.
and he came right through my community
Mhm.
and past my house every time he went to that church,
Okay.
because he was single, still living with his mother and dad.
Right.
And so I began to hear those girls, and they had a big crush on him, and
Oh,
they
sure.
talked about him quite a lot in the dressing room.
Right.
At that time, like I said, I was just mostly into basketball, and
Mhm.
I had a boyfriend here
Yeah.
and there, but I
Nothing
never went
serious.
steady. I
Yeah.
never found the person I thought God was leading me to.
Right.
And so most of my time I concentrated on basketball and just having fun.
Enjoying yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And so during the times that he would pass the house, he didn't know who we were.
No.
He didn't know who my parents were or anything. I remember just shortly after he went, some way or another, I wasn't driving yet, so somebody must have taken us.
Yeah.
I went with my grandmother up to his church to an elderly person's funeral.
Oh, okay.
And so when we went in, the auditorium was full. It was not a huge church.
Right.
And we were forced to go down and sit right behind him and the other ministers down on the, we sat on the 2nd row from the front. They were on the front.
So you were sitting right behind
I was
him.
right behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget what he had on.
Right.
And, you know, I was very young.
How old do you think you were?
Well, I was probably
15?
just in probably at that time I was too young to drive. So I
Mhm.
would imagine I was probably 12, 13
Oh, okay.
years old.
So
and
that was your first encounter of really just being
Right.
close to him.
that's right.
Okay. That's
And he
interesting.
had just come there.
Yeah.
And I probably hadn't heard the girls talking about him at that time.
Right.
But then later, just hearing them in the gym talking about him, just their big crushes on him and
Right.
everything, I knew that he was already, you know, almost finished in college.
Right.
So I was not that old.
Right.
I'm not going to say how old,
Right.
but I wasn't that old.
Yeah.
But anyway, there came a time when, let's see, I must have been about 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister, younger sister, and I were just in our everyday clothes and just not, I don't even know if we had our hair combed or not. We walked up to my uncle's store, and as we were going in, I recognized his car. And we walked right by his car window. We could have reached out and touched him.
Wow.
And you know, and I was hoping he would not look at me
Because of
because
the way you were
the
looking,
way I
yeah.
was dressed and everything.
yeah.
So anyway, another encounter when I was about 16, we were sitting on the front porch, my family, and it was Sunday afternoon. He was on his way to his church to preach the evening service.
Right.
And we knew his car because it
You could hear
had
it.
those mufflers on, and you could hear it coming. And so all of a sudden, it just cut off.
Hmm.
The motor cut off,
Wow.
and I looked up and I said, "Daddy, I believe that Mount Zion pastor is having car trouble." And he said, "Oh, okay, I'll walk out there and check on him." And he knew he was dressed in his dress clothes,
Yeah.
and so
He wanted to help in any way he could.
that's right. And then the one last time that this stuck with me probably more than any of the others was as I got older. I looked and I saw him passing through, and at that time our highway wasn't paved.
Right.
You
dirt
could
road.
hear it. You could hear him coming a half a mile because he was throwing gravel everywhere, and he was not driving that fast,
Oh,
but it was
okay.
just the gravel
Okay. Okay.
and his muffler. You could
Okay.
hear that.
Yes, indeed.
So as he passed, I don't know exactly where I was. I was close to the highway, but he didn't. I'm not close enough for him to see me.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I saw him, and I said, in my spirit, I just said, I could do that, meaning that
Be a
I could be
pastor's
a
wife.
pastor's wife.
How about that?
And then the next thought, well, he's older, he's in college, he wouldn't even look at me. And so
it was a fleeting
it
thought.
was a fleeting thought, but I had heard a message soon after I got saved.
Mhm.
And the pastor preached, and he did this verse: if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given you. That's from James 1:5.
Right.
And I had prayed for that wisdom,
Right.
and I was just waiting on God. I believed in my heart, I had enough faith to believe that God had someone specifically for me,
Absolutely.
and that I was not going to settle for anything less.
You were going to be patient and wait on him.
Be patient and wait on him, and that would be something I would recommend to any young person today, if they are Christians, to wait on God, because he has someone picked out for you. And all you have to do is be patient and keep praying.
Yes, and along those lines, we know that, and I think this is Dad's favorite verse, Romans 8:28, and we know all things work together for good to those who love him, meaning God, and are the called according to his purpose. So God is constantly working in our lives. Well, what I want to do is this. On our next episode, I want to pick up there and hear in your words about how you got introduced to Dad.
That'll be fun.
That will be a lot of fun. Well, friends, as I've said, on the next episode, we'll be visiting with my mother again, and how he continued to use a young country girl and work in her life to prepare her for what he had in store for her in her future. I hope you will join us, because we will hear from her how God orchestrated my dad and her meeting. And you've heard that story if you've listened to the past episodes from his perspective, but I think you'll like to hear it from her perspective. Thank you all again for joining us. And once again, if you enjoy the content, please press the like button. And please subscribe, and if you feel that there are those you know that would enjoy this, please share this content with them. And I would just like to say, I hope you have a great day, and may God bless you.
I just want to speak the name of Jesus